Hi, welcome to our first edition of Live with AAFMAA. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Charlene Wild, an Army veteran and military spouse from AAFMAA, American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association. We're going to get started on the next couple minutes in our discussion surrounding navigating the EFMP with some topic experts who joined us. But first, I'd love to see some comments of where you're joining us from. And just if you happen to be near an Army installation or a military installation, love to see where that's at. And what branch of service are you joining us from? And are you a family with a special needs family member? And is your family enrolled in the EFMP program? We'd love to hear from you too, so we can know who our audience is today. And one of our guests today is from With Partners in Promise. Have you heard of them before? And are you an AAFMAA member? We would love to know how long you've been with AAFMAA and how did you hear about AAFMAA if you're not a member? And if you have any specific questions regarding the EFMP program that Megan can answer for you later on today in our discussion, please go ahead and put it in the chat box and we will address your question. If we can't get it online today, we will get back with you later on. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring in our all-star guests. The first of our guests today is Megan Considine, Development Director at Partners in Promise. Hi, Megan.
Hi, Charlene. Thank you for having me.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us. And can you tell us what life is like in your world right now? And I hear there's a very unique story behind that beautiful piece of artwork behind you.
Sure, thanks for asking. We are following the flow of many military families, or many families right now who have school-aged children. We're wrapping up our first month of in-person school, which we definitely do not take for granted. I have a new middle schooler this year who is really big into band and percussion, so that's been a new thing for us. And I have one child still in elementary school, so this is our first time split between two different schools. And you asked about the screen. You asked about this screen. This is, my grandmother was a Navy spouse, and she was very talented, very crafty, which I did not inherit. But I did benefit from inheriting her work. So she made this screen from when they were stationed in Guantanamo, Cuba. She collected all of the sea glass over their assignments and created the screen. And since then, it's over 50 years old, and it's been on multiple PCS moves with us right now. It's always our biggest, when we PCS, it's always that high value item that I make sure is wrapped up nicely.
Excellent. I think that every military family has some piece of some family tradition that we move around with us, and we have fingers crossed every single time, like, please do not let that get damaged. Well, that is gorgeous. And thank you for sharing that story. That's awesome. And our second of our all-star guests today is Lynn Babin. She is manager of member and survivor benefits here at AAFMAA. So Lynn, I would love to hear what life is like in your world right now. And, you know, I did hear a little rumor that you may know something about a tree house. Please share all. And you need to unmute yourself, Lynn.
Hello, everybody. Yes, I'll share about that. I am a military spouse. My husband served 32 years in the U.S. Army Band at Fort Myer. And we had a unique situation where it was stabilized duty. And with that, as a military musician, he did not have a 9-to-5 job. So during his off hours, he built us a treehouse on property in Richmond. And it's about the size of a travel trailer. And we sleep about 5 to 6 people. And it is a family compound where our daughter and our son and his kids and his wife join us for family events and cutting grass. I'm also really involved in working with our members and our survivors as a manager of member and survivor benefits. So we have a great team, and we're always supporting our members and doing events like this or doing webinars with transitioning service members. So we are quite busy, and I'm very grateful to be here today. Thank you, Charlie.
Great. Thanks for that story, Lynn. And, not every day do you get to hear someone who has a treehouse. So that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that detail. So let's go ahead and dive into our first discussion today. We're all about our partners in promise. And, I really am just so excited about this topic. And, Megan, can you tell us a little bit about your family's military journey?
Sure, Charlene. Well, I'm an Army veteran as well. I met my husband at our first assignment. We actually just celebrated our 19 year anniversary. So that's 19 years in the Army.
Congrats.
Thank you. We've lived all over the United States and overseas in Germany. When I served, I deployed myself several times. And since then, I've been through multiple deployments as a spouse and as a mother. And both of our children, we had both our children after I left the military. So we have a 12-year-old son and a 10-year-old daughter who are living this military lifestyle with us.
Excellent. And, I think that, so many times as a veteran that the military lifestyle just kind of, everyone thinks that's going to become natural, but it's really not. And because it's a totally different lifestyle from being a veteran yourself.
So, definitely. It's an adjustment for sure.
It really is. So back to Partners in Promise. And, I really would love to hear the story about how your organization started and really about your role and how you came to that role in the organization.
Sure. Partners in Promise is only about 2 years old. We were founded in 2020 during COVID to elevate the concerns of our military special education students and their families. Our goal is to make sure that they receive access to the free and appropriate education they deserve, that they have the right to receive. So Partners in Promise were led by an incredibly strong team of advocates, from a special education attorney to former EFMP staffers, to those who worked in special education as teachers. We even have a journalist on our team. And each of us has a unique and compelling reason for why we serve, and namely it's our children. We're all active duty military families across all the branches, and all of us have a child who has been diagnosed with a special need or is enrolled in EFMP. For me, you asked, what brought me to Partners in Promise. Our daughter is on the autism spectrum. We actually went through her assessment and diagnosis when she was 4 years old. We were totally blindsided by it. We got a very active 6-year-old son, and we were so focused on him, we just didn't even realize. And it was her preschool teachers who pulled us aside and suggested that she may need more resources. We were almost a little bit embarrassed. We were scared, upset, overwhelmed, and there was even some defensiveness there. Yeah. But once she was diagnosed and we went through the process, we were able to start planning for her education and receive an IEP. So since then, she's been to 4 different schools and then lived in as many locations. So this is one of the reasons I was really drawn to the mission of Partners in Promise.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. And, I think that so many times my son was also led to his diagnosis from his preschool teacher. It was a very similar story that, the preschool wasn't quite working the way we thought it was going to work. And she kind of pulled us aside and we're still in touch to this day, that she's still one of our close friends, that she really was like, how's my man doing today? So
that's wonderful to hear. And we're a storytelling organization. So we try to tell these stories of families so you don't feel alone, but we also focus on database solutions. So we do research through our survey to inform policy decisions, and we use the stories to let people know the impact of these policies on our families and of multiple new moves on our special needs children.
Well, thank you for the work that you do. It's just a phenomenal organization. And I hear that you have an annual survey. And can you tell me more about that and how can we all help you?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for highlighting it. One of our mottos is "We love data, but stories complete us." I almost wore the t-shirt today, but I opted not to. But last year's military special education survey was widely distributed within the military community, within DOD, EFMP, and congressional leadership. We found that 50% of Partners in Promise, our data-driven recommendations that came from last year's surveys, were included in the 2021 National Defense Authorization Act. This includes EFMP standardization across installations, as well as legal support services for our EFMP families when it comes to special education. And our current survey is live. We worked closely with Ohio State University to receive IRB approval and to collaborate with researchers. Our findings will be reviewed and published in collaboration with Dr. Amy Schuman, who is a storyteller herself. She specializes in both disability research and storytelling.
That's awesome. And I think it's so important to have that combination of not only data, but the story that behind it. It really completes the picture of any survey.
It makes it more impactful. You can have a gut feeling, but you really need the data to know what the real challenges are that families are facing and how you can find solutions to meet those challenges, which is what really drew me into Partners in Promise. We don't want to just say what's wrong. We want to say how we can fix it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I know that you do, it's an annual survey. You're only 2 years old. So it's kind of on the, can you tell me some of the important findings that you learned from last year's survey? And what do you look to accomplish for this year's survey?
So last year's survey showed that there are systemic problems with special education for military families across the U.S. The trend is that while many schools are doing a wonderful job, there are other school systems that are not providing the required standards of education for our families. That survey uncovered gaps in special education services prior to and after a military move, or PCS. Actually, 79% of families went without services for over a month in their new school. So compound that each time you PCS, that's a significant impact on a child. The stories that we heard from families also emphasize these challenges.
Oh, that's wonderful. And, I think that, doing this kind of surveys is the only way to really get that, that information and to hear those stories of so many different people. So going on with stories that I did have a chance to really listen to a couple of your podcasts, and they really spoke to me. So before we talk about your podcast, we're going to go ahead and play a really quick clip of that.
Partners in Promise is excited to announce the launch of a bi-weekly podcast, Disruptive Storytelling with Military Changemakers. On our premiere season, we will focus on stories of military stigma. So why is a nonprofit that focuses on helping military students in special education talking about stigma? At Partners in Promise, we know that having disruptive conversations often leads to real change, both in special education and in the military. To hear more disruptive military stories, subscribe today.
Wow, disruptive storytelling. What a title. And that's so powerful. And I think that anyone who listens to any of those clips and stories will really hear that. So I really love the backstory of how that came about.
Oh, I just love this podcast, and we've had great feedback from it from families and individuals who've listened to it, both within the military community and outside of the military community, which is fantastic. But one of our findings in last year's survey was that stigma is associated with seeking help or even enrolling in EFMP. Many families are choosing who have children with special education requirements aren't enrolling in the EFMP because they're concerned about the stigma. And as you know, when someone is not connected, they're also not hearing about the resources that are available to them. So they're missing out on an opportunity, or they're not getting all the wealth of incredible resources that are there for military families. So this was concerning, and one reason, and it is the main reason that we started disruptive storytelling with military change makers. And we don't just address special education and families with special needs, as you heard from that clip. We talk about mental health. We talk about stigma in general, both internal and external. We talk about being Asian American in the military. It's just a fantastic podcast. So I encourage anyone, if you want to tell your story, reach out to us through our website. You can access the podcast through our website, through Podbean, and through Apple Podcasts. Any of the regular podcast vehicles it is available on.
Yeah, I know. I listened to several of them, and I related to almost every single episode. And so I can't wait to hear that. And I really wish that this kind of resources were available when I first entered into the EFMP world. That I think that would have helped so many different people. But of course, podcasts weren't even around then. So there you go.
There are so many great resources for families. So if we can help connect them, get them the information they need and make them feel, like you said, when you first get a diagnosis, you feel really overwhelmed. You don't know where to turn to or where to go. You can come to Partners in Promise. You can look at Military One Source. You can come to AAFMAA to talk about, your financial stability for your child as they get older. There's a lot out there to support us, and we want to make sure our families are connected and aware of it.
Thanks, Megan. And as you know, the needs of military families, they with special needs are constantly changing. And I just really appreciate your organization. And our next topic of discussion today is all about resources and really points to consider when you're making those family decisions. And so for those of us who have just joined us, thank you. And don't forget to comment and share and tell us where you're joining us from today. We'd really love to hear from you. And if you have any tips or recommendations on this topic, go ahead and put them in the comment box, and we will love to hear from you as well. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat. We may not get to them during this stream, but we will get to you afterwards and make sure we address those questions. And also, if you're just joining us, we just finished our discussion with Megan regarding Partners in Promise. And our next topic is from Lynn Babin, Member Benefits, and we're going to talk about some resources available to families with AAFMAA, American Armed Forces Mutual Aid Association. So Lynn, welcome.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear more about your military family journey.
Well, it was quite unique. I have been in the insurance industry for quite some time. I relocated to Washington, D.C. with an insurance company. And long story short, I met my husband in Alexandria, Virginia. He was a musician in the ceremonial band with Pershing's Own at Fort Myer. So I had no experience with the military and honestly did not know what was available for me as a spouse and for our family. So after 10 years of marriage, I was looking for a job and I was hired by AAFMAA. And I was just down the street from the U.S. Army Band's building. And I asked around saying, does anybody know who AAFMAA is? And they said, oh, it's a mutual aid association. Well, they didn't really know exactly what we offered. So my insurance experience came in very handy at AAFMAA. But more importantly was the information and the knowledge that I learned regarding military benefits and entitlements, and also how that applied to me. And as a civilian marrying into the military pretty late in life, I was surprised at the support and the services we have. So just to let you know that my team is military affiliated. Most of us are veterans, retirees, family members, and 40% of our AAFMAA employees are military affiliated. So our team can really relate to our members. And most of us have very common experiences and shared experiences with our member. So we had stabilized duty. So I did not relocate. I did not PCS, but I do understand our colleagues and our members who do PCS and the challenges that they run across when they have special needs children and, needing financial support and financial education.
Yeah, I'm glad that you were able to experience the sort of the military family, that we really do support each other. It's a very unique lifestyle. So I'm glad that you were able to find that those welcoming arms when you joined the family. So yeah, I know that AAFMAA provides life insurance, and been doing that for 142 years. And that's pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
And so thankfully, like, products and services have changed a little bit over 142 years, and to meet the needs of the community, and as families change and as families grow. And can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So as you all know, my background is life insurance, but at AAFMAA, we are listening and we are working with our members, and we want to respond to our members' needs and as well as their families. So we have life insurance products for every phase of a military service member's life. And we also support with term insurance that supplements the SGLI, value-added whole life policies that support the life of a service member and their families to ensure they have something left to assist their families. And we also have wealth builder products that allow our members to invest in the future of their family. So that's one aspect of our reason for being, but the other aspect was offering services such as wealth management and trust. So we have AAFMAA Wealth Management and Trust that's been around for about 9 years. They work in financial planning, asset management, and trust services. So oftentimes, if we have a service member that has a situation where they need that financial guidance, we pass them on to our wealth management trust organization. And we also have our AAFMAA mortgage services. So we have evolved to address the needs of our members, and mortgage services provides very attractive and competitive mortgages for our members. So all in all, AAFMAA has been very nimble in responding to our members and their needs. So we have been listening and we have been delivering.
Excellent. I like that. Listen and deliver. Thank you. And so I know that you work in member benefits specifically. And so can you tell us a little about what member benefits does and the services they provide to our members?
Sure. So I manage both member and survivor benefits. So we look at this as a package. We want to educate our members and let our members know of the resources that they have available for their situation. So it could be talking to them about SBP or special needs trusts or the VA or life insurance, or there are essential documents that they need to store on file in order for their families to apply for these benefits and entitlements. And a lot of times people don't realize, our members don't realize, that these entitlements and these benefits carry on to your surviving family. So as an organization, we are there to guide and to educate our members. We provide resources through forums, through blogs, through partnerships such as Partners in Promise. We have a spouse link that is a great resource for our spouses and our service members to participate in sharing their stories. And each situation is so different, so we work very closely with our members to ensure that we address their needs.
Oh, excellent. And I know that you often tailor those services. So if you have a special needs family, that if you don't necessarily know the answer, that you seek out other resources and guide them to those resources. So that's wonderful. And as you're dealing with the changing needs of military families that may have some special needs, that do you find the topic of like special needs trusts coming up more and more in your discussions?
Absolutely. So the special needs trust option for survivor benefit annuity election was rolled out in the 2015 NDAA. So at that point, things got very active for member benefits. And so we would explain to our members the options that they have to direct their annuity payment, SBP, survivor benefit annuity payment, to their dependent children or child, to a special needs trust. And that's for the benefit of that disabled child. So the special needs trust is really a legal instrument designed specifically for that disabled child, and that special needs trust provides very specific instructions on how to manage that money to help that special needs child. So it's not available for the spouse, it's really available for the child of a service member. And we've also been invited to work with the ARC of Northern Virginia. And they're a local chapter of a non-for-profit organization, and they support thousands of people and families with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And they are there to promote and protect the human rights of the peoples with these disabilities, but actively support their inclusion in participating in the community throughout their lifetime. So this is not only geared towards military families, but to all families that have these challenges. So we have been able to do webinars and talking or resources to our members with the ARC, and it's been very helpful, especially for our members that are locally in the Northern Virginia area, but they have chapters all over the country. So one of the aspects that we try to do is connect our members with these services, because I think what Megan has shared with me is that every service and every location is very different to support EFMP families. So we have to guide them, our members, in very small ways, and then things start snowballing and they find their resources.
Yeah, I think that's great that you bring that up, Lynn. And special needs trust and survivor benefits are so important for families to talk about. We all want our children to be independent. We want them to be productive members of society, but we're also military families, and we're planners. We want to be able to plan for their future. And this is a way that you can take that concern that you may have that's keeping you up at night about your child's financial future and help ease it, while also still protect the federal benefits that they get as children as adults with disabilities.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that's definitely something that, I know that we're in that stage right now of trying to figure out if we need to have that or not. And I think that someone who just went through that, Megan, and
yes.
It's quite a process and it's quite daunting, but it's really important to really look at all angles and to make sure that you're planning ahead and you're prepared.
Yeah, Charlene, our executive director actually just went through this for her daughter. And you mentioned, Lynn, there may be resources at some installations that help families. You can check with your EFMP office. In some cases, there are some attorneys available to help families with this process. But take the time to look into it and start having these discussions now rather than waiting till later.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It is a very unique service, and you want to find an attorney that specializes in special needs and special needs trusts.
And so on the banner below is the link to the ARC, so that you can check it out if you would like to, and that'll be displayed in just a couple minutes. So moving on, our next discussion point, Lynn, I know that you deal with a lot of families, and there's a lot of considerations that you've encountered with so many different families. And when they're talking about life insurance, what are some considerations that families need to think about? If they have someone who maybe has some special needs, what should they consider?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because the special needs trust is not for everybody. And when you're dealing with, the conversation of how do we protect our family and our children as adults, we want our members to evaluate the type of coverage they're going to need, and what would happen if the main income earner passes away. I know it's not something that we want to talk about, but it is very important to discuss these items, these topics with our families so that we're not left with no direction. So we want to talk about the different types of policies. Secondly, you want to know if you need to set up a special needs trust to protect your children or your child. This is really available for non-military service members, but for someone who's retiring from the military, part of their retirement benefit can be left to their special needs trust. So is that sufficient to protect the family? Not always. So we want to look at what needs to be replaced or protected when a service member passes away. And we do that through life insurance. And it can be a term policy where it's for a specific period of time to protect the higher risk of you passing away when you have a mortgage or you have educational expenses. Or, a more, like I said, a value-added whole life. And we want to ensure that you have all the facts so you make the right decision. Life insurance is really for the people that you're leaving behind. And with a life insurance policy, you can elect whoever you want for your beneficiary. When you're talking about survivor benefit plan, it's really designed for your family, your spouse, children, former spouse, special needs trust. So with life insurance, you can leave that benefit and it's tax-free to anyone you deem responsible for your family or for your child. It can also be left to that special needs trust as the beneficiary. So look at your options. If you're with AAFMAA, you want to talk to AAFMAA about the different options for your beneficiary election. If you already have insurance, see what the other companies offer you, but ask the questions. And that's exactly what I want to leave you with is, for me as a non-military spouse coming into the military community, I didn't know what to ask. But as you start talking about your personal situation, people will start sharing their experience or someone they know that has experienced the same. So don't be afraid. And I think our population right now is very open in sharing their concerns about their family, especially with what we've gone through with the pandemic and our families and our children that are struggling or not struggling. But the fact that there's resources out there, we're very lucky to have these partners and these networks that we can tap into. So, when you're evaluating life insurance, it's a very personal decision and there's different options. So talk to somebody you trust. If you don't have anybody, you can always call AAFMAA, where we don't turn people away and we will help you.
Oh, thanks, Lynn. And I'm glad that you were able to experience the close-knit community of the military. I've always found that wherever we move to and whatever is going on, that I can always find some kind of resource, and that the military community in general is always very helpful. And we never want to leave someone hanging without any information. And that's wonderful, the work that you guys do in member benefits and really guiding families through their options through with their life insurance questions and needs. Now, have there been any resources specifically that you and your team have found when helpful when guiding families through this process?
Well, it's a very unique situation for each family member. So we have our foundation where we understand the special needs trust for the survivor benefit election form, but there's also benefits that are available, or entitlements, I would say, that you have to apply for with the VA if the service member dies of a service-connected condition. So as an AAFMAA member, if you have a policy with us, our survivor assistance team guides our families with those applicable benefits and entitlements. We prepare the forms. So the resources we use are basically what we've experienced with our current members. We reach out to organizations such as ARC. We consult oftentimes with our wealth management and trust organization. And we do go out there and start researching specific questions. So we use our partners and a spouse link, which is another resource that AAFMAA has created for spouses to connect and share their experience and their resources. So we are at service for our members depending on what they're looking for. So it's all about networking, and the great thing is that we have so many resources online, and just ensuring that those resources are qualifying resources that you can trust.
Thanks, Lynn. And I know that our members really appreciate your dedication in that area. And check out spouselink.org. There is actually an article that was just posted most recently about a story of a guest blogger and their story and their EFMP journey. And it was really insightful. And if you're a blogger, then you would still like to be a post on SpouseLink, then there's also directions on there that you can do that as well. We would love to hear from you in your family's story. So this has been a really awesome discussion today. And as we wrap up our session, I have one final question for both of you. I know whenever my son was first diagnosed, as I said earlier, I was terrified and didn't really know what to do, and had to figure out this journey. I felt very alone. Megan, if you had one piece of advice that you could provide to a military family who maybe was in my shoes and had just found out this diagnosis, and you've been there as well, what would you say to them?
Yeah, this is a great question, and we get questions like this a lot. I would say just take a deep breath first. Center yourself, take a deep breath, and you are not alone. You are not alone. There are many families going through what you are going through, even though every situation is unique. Those feelings you're feeling as a parent, there are others you can share that with and who you can reach out to for help. So don't be afraid to ask for help and to look outside your family. There are lots of great resources. So we're there to support each other.
Yeah, thanks, Megan. And for Lynn, what piece of advice would you give to a brand new military spouse who, like you, had no background in the community and were brand new? What would you say to them?
I was brand new. First of all, get to know the families in your spouse's unit. I didn't even know exactly what my husband did for the first 10 years of our marriage. He was in the ceremonial band playing funerals at Arlington National Cemetery. So when I found out that there were family members associated with these other musicians, we started getting together and I started learning a lot about what was available. And when you think about this as a spouse, we have incredible services and resources as a military family. And I am so passionate about letting our members know. So get connected with the families in your spouse's unit. And also don't wait 10 years to go to the commissary and the post exchange. I did not know what that was all about until I started working at AAFMAA. So, definitely take those resources. And if your husband's not involved or your wife is not involved in understanding all these benefits, go snoop around and ask questions. And that's how I learned. And thankfully, being hired by AAFMAA gave me this ability to learn about these tremendous resources and sharing them with other family members and other service members. And I have to say that the Pershing Zone, the U.S. Army Band, are very familiar with who I am and what I do. So we are definitely a close-knit family. And as you explore military life, definitely stay connected.
Excellent. So there's a common theme in both your answers today. Reach out and stay connected, and you will surely find the answers that you're looking for. So thank you so much for joining us today on our first episode of AAFMAA Live, and we look forward to our next episode, and we cannot wait to have you join us. And so before we go, I do want to give a big shout out to Megan and Partners in Promise for joining us today. And make sure you check out their survey at the link below. so we can make sure we get all the information to help them do their work. And thank you, Lynn, from Member Benefits Department. Thank you for sharing your stories and the resources available to the military community. We'll see everyone next time, and have an awesome day. Bye-bye.